The winter of 1882 descended upon the Colorado mountains like a merciless predator, its icy claws tearing through the thin walls of the modest cabin where Eleanor knelt beside her son's bed. Marcus lay motionless beneath layers of quilts, his small chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths that seemed to grow weaker with each passing hour. His skin, once flushed with the rosy vitality of youth, had taken on a ghostly pallor that made Eleanor's heart clench with terror. "Please, Marcus," she whispered, pressing a cool cloth to his burning forehead. "Please, hold on, my darling." But the fever showed no signs of breaking. For 3 long days and nights now, it had raged through his small body like wildfire, and Eleanor had exhausted every remedy she knew. She had tried cool baths, herbal teas passed down from her grandmother, poultices and prayers. Nothing worked. The town doctor had come and gone twice, shaking his head gravely as he departed each time, leaving behind only expensive medicines that seemed to do nothing but drain their meager savings. Eleanor's husband, Thomas, stood by the frost-covered window, his broad shoulders slumped in defeat. "The doctor said there's nothing more he can do," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "We should prepare ourselves for the worst." "No." The word came out sharp and fierce. Eleanor rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with determination. "I won't give up on him. I can't. He's our son, Thomas, our only child." Thomas turned to face her, his weathered face etched with pain. "Eleanor, what more can we do? We've tried everything the doctor suggested. We've spent nearly all our savings. What else is there?" "Not everything." Eleanor moved to the small table where she kept her correspondence, rifling through papers until she found a letter from her friend. Mrs. Henderson mentioned something in her last letter about a hermit who lives up in the high country. She said he has knowledge of healing herbs and old remedies, that he's cured people the doctors had given up on. Thomas's expression darkened. "You're talking about Nathaniel. Eleanor, the man is half mad. People say he talks to the trees and communes with spirits. You can't seriously be considering—" "I'm considering anything that might save our son." Eleanor's voice cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "If there's even the smallest chance, I have to try." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken fears and desperate hope. Finally, Thomas nodded slowly. "Then I'll go. The trail is treacherous." "No." Eleanor was already reaching for her heavy coat. "You need to stay with Marcus. If he wakes, he'll need you here. I know these mountains. I can make it." Before Thomas could protest further, Eleanor was gathering supplies: a lantern, rope, dried meat, and a canteen of water. She tucked a small pouch of coins into her pocket, though she had no idea if the hermit would even accept payment. As she prepared to leave, she returned to Marcus's bedside one last time, pressing a kiss to his fevered brow. "I'll be back soon, my darling," she whispered. "With help, I promise." The journey began in the gray light of dawn. Eleanor followed the narrow trail that wound up into the mountains, her boots crunching through fresh snow. The cold bit at her exposed skin, but she barely noticed, her mind focused entirely on her mission. Marcus's pale face haunted her thoughts, driving her forward. As she climbed higher, the trail became increasingly difficult to follow. Snow-laden branches hung low across the path, and more than once she had to navigate around fallen logs or steep drop-offs. The wind picked up, howling through the pines like a chorus of lost souls, but Eleanor pressed on with grim determination. Hours passed in a blur of white and cold. Her legs ached, her lungs burned from the thin mountain air, and doubt began to creep into her thoughts. What if she couldn't find the hermit's cabin? What if Mrs. Henderson had been wrong? What if she was wasting precious time that Marcus didn't have? No, she couldn't think like that. She had to believe. Just as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, Eleanor spotted a thin column of smoke rising above the trees ahead. Her heart leaped with hope, and she quickened her pace despite her exhaustion. The smoke led her to a small clearing where a rough-hewn cabin stood, looking as though it had grown organically from the mountain itself. Eleanor approached cautiously, suddenly uncertain. What would she say? How would she convince this reclusive stranger to help her? Before she could knock, the heavy wooden door swung open, revealing a tall, lean man with a wild gray beard and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through her. He wore simple homespun clothing and carried himself with a quiet dignity that immediately dispelled the rumors of madness. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Your son is very ill." Eleanor's breath caught. "How did you?" "A mother's desperation has a particular quality to it. I've seen it before." Nathaniel stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "Come in. Tell me about the boy." The cabin's interior was sparse but clean, lined with shelves holding countless jars of dried herbs, roots, and mysterious substances. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, filling the space with warmth. Eleanor found herself sinking into a chair, and the entire story came pouring out. Marcus's sudden illness, the doctor's failure, her growing terror that she would lose her only child. Nathaniel listened intently, occasionally asking specific questions about Marcus's symptoms. When Eleanor finished, he moved to his shelves, selecting various jars with practiced precision. "The fever you describe, combined with the rash and the difficulty breathing, I've encountered this before," he said, grinding herbs together in a worn mortar. "It's a rare infection, one that conventional medicine often fails to treat. But there is a remedy if we act quickly." Hope surged through Eleanor's chest. "You can help him? I can give you what he needs." Nathaniel worked as he spoke, mixing ingredients with careful measurements. "This preparation must be administered every 4 hours. Brew it as a tea, 1 spoonful in boiling water. Make him drink it all, even if he resists. The taste is bitter, but it will break the fever and fight the infection." He poured the mixture into a small leather pouch and handed it to Eleanor, then selected several other containers. "This salve is for the rash. Apply it twice daily, and this tincture will help with the breathing, 3 drops under his tongue, morning and night." Eleanor clutched the pouch to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. How much do I owe you? I have some money." Nathaniel waved away her offer. "Keep your coins. They're of no use to me up here." He paused, his expression softening. "But I will ask something of you. When your son recovers, and he will recover, remember this day. Remember that healing comes in many forms from many sources. Don't let fear or prejudice blind you to help when it's offered." Eleanor nodded fervently. "I will, I promise. There's one more thing." Nathaniel moved to a shelf near the door and retrieved a small carved wooden figure, a bear, rendered with surprising artistry. "Give this to Marcus when he wakes. Tell him it's a reminder that even in the darkest winter, spring always comes." Eleanor accepted the carving with trembling hands, too overcome with emotion to speak. Nathaniel packed additional supplies for her journey back: food, a better lantern, and a thick blanket. "The trail will be harder in the dark," he said, "but I suspect nothing will stop you from getting back to your son." He was right. Eleanor made the return journey in record time, driven by fierce determination and renewed hope. She barely felt the cold or the exhaustion, her mind focused entirely on getting the medicine to Marcus. The moon rose full and bright, lighting her way home. When she finally burst through the cabin door, Thomas leaped to his feet, his face a mixture of relief and anxiety. "Eleanor, thank God! Marcus, he's still with us," Eleanor finished, seeing her son's chest still rising and falling. "And he's going to stay with us." She immediately set to work, building up the fire and setting water to boil. While she waited, she told Thomas everything, about Nathaniel, about the medicines, about the hope she now carried in her heart. When the water boiled, Eleanor prepared the first dose exactly as instructed. The mixture turned the water a deep amber color and gave off a pungent, earthy smell. Marcus was barely conscious, but with Thomas's help, they managed to get him to swallow the bitter tea. She then applied the salve to his rash and administered the tincture as instructed. Then there was nothing to do but wait and pray. The first hour passed with agonizing slowness. Eleanor sat beside Marcus's bed, holding his small hand, watching for any sign of change. Thomas paced the cabin, unable to sit still. The second hour brought a moment of terror when Marcus began to shake violently. Eleanor nearly panicked, but then remembered Nathaniel's calm confidence. She held her son close, murmuring soothing words until the shaking passed. By the third hour, Eleanor thought she detected a slight change in Marcus's breathing. It seemed easier, less labored. She hardly dared to hope. When the fourth hour arrived, she prepared the second dose. This time, Marcus's eyes fluttered open briefly as he drank, and Eleanor's heart soared. Through the long night, she maintained the schedule religiously, administering the medicine every 4 hours. Thomas dozed fitfully in his chair, but Eleanor couldn't sleep. She kept vigil, watching over her son with fierce protectiveness. As dawn broke on the second day, Marcus's fever finally broke. The change was dramatic. His skin cooled, his breathing eased, and color began to return to his cheeks. When his eyes opened fully and he whispered, "Mama, I'm thirsty," Eleanor broke down completely, sobbing with relief and joy. "I'm here, darling," she managed to say through her tears. "I'm here, and you're going to be fine." Over the following days, Marcus's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. His strength returned rapidly, and soon he was sitting up in bed, eating with appetite, and even laughing at his father's jokes. The rash faded, and his breathing returned to normal. Within a week, he was out of bed, playing with his toys as though he had never been ill. Eleanor never forgot her promise to Nathaniel. She told everyone who would listen about the hermit who had saved her son, defending him passionately against those who called him strange or dangerous. When spring came and the mountain trails cleared, she made the journey back to his cabin with Thomas and Marcus, bringing gifts of gratitude, fresh bread, jars of preserves, and a warm quilt she had sewn herself. Nathaniel accepted their thanks with quiet grace, but Eleanor could see the pleasure in his eyes when Marcus showed him that he still carried the wooden bear everywhere he went. "It's my good luck charm," Marcus declared solemnly. "It reminds me that even when things seem really bad, they can get better." Nathaniel smiled, a rare expression that transformed his weathered face. "You're a wise young man, Marcus. Don't ever lose that wisdom. The world needs people who remember that darkness doesn't last forever." As they prepared to leave, Nathaniel pulled Eleanor aside. "You kept your promise," he said quietly. "Not everyone does. Your son is lucky to have a mother with such courage and determination." "I'm the lucky one," Eleanor replied, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave me back my child. I can never repay that debt." "You already have," Nathaniel said simply. "By remembering that healing takes many forms, and by teaching your son the same lesson, that's payment enough." The years that followed proved Nathaniel right in ways Eleanor could never have imagined. Marcus grew into a strong, healthy young man who never forgot the hermit who had saved his life. He became a doctor himself, driven by a desire to help others as he had been helped. But unlike many of his colleagues, he never dismissed traditional remedies or unconventional healers. He understood, as his mother had taught him, that wisdom and healing could come from unexpected sources. Eleanor lived to see her son graduate from medical school with honors, marry a kind woman, and have children of his own. 3 beautiful grandchildren who filled her later years with joy. She often told them the story of that desperate winter journey, of the hermit in the mountains who had saved their father's life, and she always ended the tale the same way. Never let fear or prejudice blind you to help when it's offered. Healing comes in many forms, from many sources. Remember that, children, and you'll never truly be lost. Remember that courage sometimes means admitting you don't have all the answers and seeking help from unexpected places. The wooden bear that Nathaniel had carved remained in the family for generations, passed down as a treasured heirloom. It served as a constant reminder of a mother's love, a hermit's wisdom, and the truth that, even in the darkest winter, spring always comes. Each generation added their own stories to its legend, but the core message remained the same. Never give up hope, never stop seeking help, and never judge the source of healing by its appearance. Years later, when Eleanor was an old woman with silver hair and Marcus was a respected doctor with his own practice, they made one final journey up the mountain to Nathaniel's cabin. But they found it empty. The fire cold, the shelves bare. The hermit had vanished as mysteriously as he had lived, leaving no trace except the memories of those he had helped and the lives he had saved. Some said he had finally found peace and moved on. Others claimed he still wandered the mountains, helping those in desperate need. Eleanor liked to think he had simply finished whatever task had brought him to the mountains in the first place, that he had healed enough broken souls to heal his own. But the lessons he taught lived on, passed down through the generations, a legacy more valuable than gold. His wisdom echoed through time, that healing comes from unexpected places, that prejudice blinds us to truth, and that a mother's love combined with a stranger's kindness can work miracles. The story of Eleanor's desperate journey became a family legend, told and retold around dinner tables and at bedtime. It reminded each new generation that when faced with impossible odds, courage means taking action, even when the path is uncertain. It taught them that wisdom exists outside the boundaries of conventional thinking, and that sometimes the most profound help comes from the most unlikely sources. Marcus's children grew up hearing about the hermit in the mountains, and they passed the story to their own children. The wooden bear traveled with the family through moves and marriages, through wars and peace, through prosperity and hardship. It became more than just a carving. It became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of compassion. And whenever someone in the family faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge, they would hold the wooden bear and remember Eleanor's journey through the snow, Nathaniel's quiet wisdom, and the truth that even in the darkest winter, spring always comes. They would remember that giving up is never the answer, that help can come from unexpected places, and that love, whether a mother's love for her child or a stranger's compassion for those in need, has the power to change everything. The hermit's cure saved more than just Marcus's life that winter. It saved a family's faith in humanity, taught generations about courage and open-mindedness, and proved that the greatest healers are often those who ask for nothing in return, except that we remember their lessons and pass them forward. What would you do to save someone you love? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to seek help from an unexpected source? Let us know your story. We'd love to hear it. And remember, never let prejudice blind you to help when it's offered. Sometimes the most unlikely sources provide the most profound healing.